The blizzard came without warning, turning the streets into white tunnels of ice. Victoria sat on a metal bench at the bus station, her breath forming desperate clouds in the frozen air. No coat. No money. Nowhere to go. Her ex-husband's final words still rang in her ears. What good is a wife who can't give me children? The divorce papers were signed that morning. The eviction notice came that afternoon. His family had made sure she left with nothing. Then headlights cut through the snow, and a black sedan stopped where no car had reason to stop. Victoria looked up through the falling ice. Was this just someone turning around, or was this the moment everything changed? Make sure to like, subscribe and comment in the comment section. Now back to the story in full. The blizzard came without warning, turning the streets into white tunnels of ice. Victoria sat on a metal bench at the bus station, her breath forming desperate clouds in the frozen air. No coat. No money. Nowhere to go. Her ex-husband's final words still rang in her ears. What good is a wife who can't give me children? The divorce papers were signed that morning. The eviction notice came that afternoon. His family had made sure she left with nothing. Then headlights cut through the snow, and a black sedan stopped where no car had reason to stop. A man stepped out, tall, dark overcoat, salt threading through his black hair. Behind him, 3 small faces pressed against the car windows. Are you hurt? His voice was low, controlled. She shook her head. Her lips were too numb to form words. A small boy appeared beside the man's leg. Dad, she doesn't have a coat. The man studied Victoria's face. Do you have somewhere warm to go tonight? She should lie. Should say she had a hotel room, a friend's place, anything. But the truth sat in her throat like a stone. No. Richard was already removing his overcoat. Put this on. Victoria wrapped the coat around her shoulders. It was still warm from his body and smelled like expensive cologne and wood smoke. The first relief from the cold in hours made her eyes sting. The smallest boy, Sam, took her hand as they walked to the car. We have hot chocolate and a fireplace. Richard's house sat behind iron gates, all brick and windows glowing gold against the snow. Inside, it smelled like pine and cinnamon. He guided Victoria to the living room where a fire crackled in a stone fireplace. Sit. I'll bring coffee. Victoria sank into a leather sofa. The children arranged themselves around her like birds finding perches. Why were you at the bus station? Sam asked. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Like us after Mom, the middle child, Emily, said softly. After the children scattered upstairs, Richard returned with 2 mugs. My husband divorced me. His family disowned me, Victoria said quietly. I'm infertile. Richard's expression didn't change. A person's value isn't determined by their reproductive capacity. Something cracked in Victoria's chest. Just enough to let light through. Victoria woke to voices. She found chaos downstairs. Emily and Sam were fighting over orange juice. Alex was searching frantically for homework. Richard stood at the stove making eggs one-handed while packing lunches with the other. Coffee's fresh, he said when Victoria appeared. Can I help? You don't have to. I want to. Richard studied her, then handed her the spatula. By the time the kids left for school, breakfast was plated and the house felt calmer. 3 days later, Richard found her folding laundry. I want to hire you. Household manager. Full-time position. Salary, benefits, everything. Victoria stared at him. You don't have to, this isn't charity. I'm drowning. I need someone who knows the kids' schedules, manages homework, handles the emotional crises. He pulled out a folder. Here's the offer. The number on the contract made her dizzy. This is too much. It's the market rate for managing a household and 3 children in New York. Don't undervalue yourself, Victoria. I won't let you. The weeks blurred into months. Victoria learned that Alex was brilliant at math but terrified of failing. Emily had nightmares about losing her father. That Sam still slept with his mother's scarf under his pillow. One afternoon, Sam struggled with his spelling words at the kitchen table. I can't remember them, he said, his face crumpling. Victoria pulled up a chair. Let's make it fun. What if each word was a... The moving boxes arrived on a Tuesday. Victoria spent the evening in the kitchen, labeling and organizing while the children slept upstairs. She heard Richard's footsteps before she saw him. He stood in the doorway, still wearing his work shirt but with the sleeves rolled up, looking at her like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't add up. "You should be sleeping," Victoria said, not looking up from the box she was packing. "So should you." Richard moved into the kitchen, poured himself water from the tap, drank it standing at the sink. "Victoria, I need to say something before we move. Before everything changes." She set down the tape dispenser. "Okay. This isn't just about the kids anymore." His voice was rough, low. "It stopped being just about the kids weeks ago, and I think you know that." Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs. "Richard. I'm in love with you." The words came out steady, certain. "I've been in love with you since you taught Sam to turn spelling words into stories. Since you sat with Emily through her nightmares. Since I started finding excuses to come home early just to see you in my kitchen." He set the glass down carefully. "I know this complicates everything. I know I'm your employer and you probably feel obligated to stay because of the job, and I swear to God, Victoria, if you want to leave, I'll give you 6 months severance and the best reference you've ever seen. But I can't get on a plane to New York and pretend I don't feel this." Victoria stood frozen. The voice in her head, the old cruel one, whispered that this was temporary, that he'd realize his mistake, that she was just convenient. But Richard was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for years. "I'm terrified," she whispered. "Of what?" "That I'm a placeholder. That you need someone and I'm just here." Her voice cracked. "That when you're ready for someone whole, someone who can give you more children." Richard closed the distance between them in 3 steps. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "You think you're broken. You think you're temporary. But Victoria, you're the steadiest thing in my life. You're the reason my children laugh again. You're the reason I remember what hope feels like." "Richard. I don't want more children. I want you. Exactly as you are. Exactly who you've always been." His forehead touched hers. "Tell me you feel this too. Tell me I'm not alone in this." Victoria's breath shuddered out. She'd been so careful, so controlled, keeping every feeling locked down tight. But standing here in this kitchen with his hands on her face and his heart in his words, she couldn't pretend anymore. "You're not alone," she whispered. "I love you. I've loved you for months and it terrifies me." Richard kissed her. Soft at first, then deeper, like he was memorizing the taste of her. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria was shaking. "We're really doing this," she said. "We're really doing this." Richard smiled, the first real unguarded smile she'd seen from him. "You, me, 3 kids, and New York City. What could possibly go wrong?" They both laughed, and for the first time since the blizzard, Victoria let herself believe in something beyond survival. She let herself believe in home. Manhattan swallowed them whole. The penthouse apartment had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, marble countertops, and enough space for each child to have their own room. It was beautiful and cold and nothing like the brick house with the fireplace where Victoria had learned to feel safe. The children struggled. Sam cried every night for the first week. Emily refused to go to her new school. Alex retreated into silence, doing his homework with mechanical precision but never meeting anyone's eyes. Richard worked 18-hour days, coming home exhausted and guilty, trying to be present but failing under the weight of the Meridian contract. And Victoria felt like a ghost in someone else's life. Sarah's presence was everywhere in New York. Richard's colleagues asked about his late wife with sympathetic eyes. The children's new teachers had been briefed about the tragedy. At a company dinner, someone actually said to Victoria, "It must be so hard, stepping into a dead woman's shoes." Victoria smiled politely and excused herself to the bathroom, where she locked herself in a stall and tried to breathe. She found the photographs one afternoon while unpacking boxes in Richard's office. A whole album of Sarah, beautiful blonde, laughing in Richard's arms. Sarah pregnant with Alex. Sarah holding newborn twins. Sarah at charity galas in designer gowns. Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. She was stunning. Victoria hadn't heard Richard come in. She closed the album quickly, feeling like she'd been caught stealing. "I'm sorry. I wasn't snooping, I was just..." It's okay. Richard took the album from her hands, set it on the desk. You're allowed to look. She was perfect. She wasn't perfect. She was human. Richard leaned against the desk. Sarah had flaws. She was terrible with money. She couldn't cook to save her life. She had a temper that could level a city block. His voice softened. But she was the mother of my children, and I loved her. The words hung between them. Loved. Past tense. But Victoria heard the ghost of present tense underneath. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Choosing me. Richard's head snapped up. What? I see how people look at us. Like I'm some opportunist who swooped in and took advantage of a widower. Victoria wrapped her arms around herself. Like I'm a replacement. You're not a replacement. Then what am I? The question came out sharper than she intended. Because I don't know how to be in a relationship with a man who's still in love with someone else. I'm not. Richard stopped. Ran his hand through his hair. Sarah is dead. I grieved for her. I'll always carry that loss. But Victoria, that doesn't mean there's no room for you. Doesn't it? Victoria's voice broke. Because it feels like I'm living in her shadow. Sleeping in her city. Raising her children. Loving her husband. He's not her husband anymore. Richard's voice was firm. He's yours. I'm yours. And I need you to believe that. Victoria wanted to believe it. But the old voice whispered that she was convenient, temporary, disposable. The woman who filled a gap until Richard found someone worthy. That night, she lay beside Richard in their bed and felt completely alone. The therapist's office was in a brownstone in Brooklyn. Dr. Chun, no relation to their former housekeeper, was a small woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach to trauma. You're struggling with your sense of identity, Dr. Chun said during their third session. You went from being defined by your infertility to being defined by your relationship to Richard and his children. But who is Victoria when she's not managing a household or being someone's partner? Victoria sat with the question. She didn't have an answer. What did you want before your marriage? Dr. Chen asked. Before your husband, before the divorce, before Richard. What did Victoria want? I wanted to finish my degree. The memory surfaced slowly. Business administration. I wanted to help women start their own companies. Why did you stop? My ex-husband said I didn't need to. That he made enough for both of us. Victoria's throat tightened. That I should focus on getting pregnant. Dr. Chen leaned forward. What if you went back? The idea was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Victoria was 32 years old. She'd been out of school for nearly a decade. She had 3 children to manage, a partner who worked constantly, a whole life that depended on her being present. But she couldn't shake the thought, what if? She brought it up to Richard that night over dinner. The children were at a sleepover, a rare moment of quiet in their chaotic life. I want to go back to school, Victoria said. Richard set down his fork. Okay. Okay. I think it's a great idea. He reached across the table, took her hand. You've spent months taking care of everyone else. It's time you took care of yourself. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. What about the kids? What about managing the house? We'll hire help. We'll figure it out. Richard squeezed her hand. Victoria, I don't need you to be a household manager. I need you to be happy. She enrolled at Columbia that fall. 2 classes to start, financial management and entrepreneurship. She was the oldest student in both courses by at least 5 years, but she didn't care. For the first time since the blizzard, she was building something that belonged to her alone. The internship came through a professor's recommendation. A nonprofit that helped divorced women restart their careers, offering microloans and business coaching. Victoria interviewed on a Tuesday and started the following Monday. Her first client was a woman named Michelle, recently divorced, 2 kids, no college degree, working 3 part-time jobs to make rent. She sat across from Victoria in the nonprofit's small office and said, I don't know how to do anything except be someone's wife. Victoria's chest tightened with recognition. Yes, you do. You just haven't had anyone believe in you yet. They spent 3 months building Michelle's business plan. A house-cleaning service that eventually grew into a small empire. At the launch party, Michelle hugged Victoria and whispered, "You saved my life." Victoria thought about the blizzard, about Richard's coat, about the moment someone had said the same thing to her through action instead of words. "You saved your own life," Victoria said. "I just showed you where the door was." That night, she came home to find Richard waiting up for her. How was it? It was perfect. Victoria kicked off her shoes, sank onto the couch beside him. "I helped someone today. Really helped them. And it felt like you found yourself again?" Victoria looked at him. This man who'd given her shelter, employment, love, and now space to become whoever she was meant to be. Yeah, exactly like that. Richard pulled her close. "I'm proud of you." And for the first time, Victoria was proud of herself too. Emily's graduation fell on a perfect May afternoon. The prep school's lawn was arranged with white chairs and a makeshift stage. Parents crowded together with cameras. Sam, now a gangly 14-year-old, complained about his tie. Alex, home from his first year at MIT, sat beside Victoria with his arm around her shoulders. Richard squeezed Victoria's hand as the ceremony began. They'd been married for 3 years. The wedding had been small, just family and close friends, held in the garden of their Hamptons house with fairy lights and wildflowers. Emily had been Victoria's maid of honor. Sam had carried the rings. Alex had walked Victoria down the aisle because, as he'd said with typical Alex seriousness, "You're already family. We're just making it official." Victoria's nonprofit had grown. She now ran a full program helping divorced women rebuild their lives, business training, therapy referrals, legal aid connections. She spoke at conferences. She'd been featured in Forbes. Her ex-husband had seen the article and sent a bitter email that she deleted without reading. She didn't need his validation anymore. She had her own. Victoria Jackson Reed, the headmaster called, and Victoria's breath caught before she realized he was talking about Emily. Emily had taken Victoria's last name when the adoption went through 2 years ago. All 3 children had, actually. Sam said it made them feel like a complete set. Emily walked across the stage in her cap and gown, collected her diploma, and found Victoria in the crowd. She pointed directly at her and mouthed, "I love you, Mom." Victoria's vision blurred. Mom. Not Victoria. Not her father's wife. Mom. After the ceremony, they took photos on the lawn. Emily stood between Victoria and Richard, radiant and confident, and so much like the scared 10-year-old who'd once had meltdowns over fractions. Sam photobombed half the pictures. Alex tried to maintain dignity but eventually gave up and joined the chaos. Speech. Sam demanded. Mom has to make a speech. I don't, Victoria started, but Emily was nodding eagerly. Please. Victoria looked at these 3 children, her children, who'd chosen her just as surely as she'd chosen them. She thought about the blizzard, the bus station, the moment Richard had crouched down and asked if she needed help. She thought about every fear, every doubt, every night she'd lain awake wondering if she deserved this family. When I met you, Victoria said slowly, I thought I was broken. I thought motherhood was something my body owed the world, and because I couldn't give that, I had no value. Her voice strengthened. But you 3 taught me that family isn't about biology. It's about who stays. Who shows up. Who loves you when you're difficult and who celebrates when you succeed. She looked at Emily. You made me a mother by letting me love you. And that's the greatest gift I've ever received. Emily crashed into her with a hug that nearly knocked them both over. Then Sam joined, then Alex, until they were all tangled together laughing and crying and making a scene on the perfect lawn. Richard stood slightly apart, watching them with an expression Victoria had learned to read over the years. Pride and love and gratitude all mixed together. That night, after the children were asleep, Victoria and Richard sat on the terrace of their apartment. The city spread out below them, millions of lights against the darkness. Do you ever think about that night? Richard asked. The blizzard. Every day. Do you ever regret it? Everything that came after. Victoria turned to look at him. This man who'd saved her life by seeing her value when she couldn't. Who'd loved her through therapy and school and panic attacks and triumphs. who'd built a life with her that was messy and beautiful and entirely theirs. "Not for a second," she said. Richard kissed her temple. "Neither do I." And sitting there in the darkness with the city lights below and her family sleeping inside, Victoria finally, completely believed she was home. Not because someone had given her shelter, but because she'd built something worth staying for. Because she'd learned that her value wasn't in what she could produce, but in who she chose to be. Because she'd discovered that sometimes the greatest act of courage is letting yourself be loved. The old voice, the one that had whispered disposable for so many years, was finally blessedly silent. We've watched Victoria go from a bus station bench to building a life that proved every cruel word wrong. If this story moved you, if you've been following this family's journey, subscribe so you don't miss the stories we're building together. This community exists because people like you believe broken things can be made whole again. Don't just witness the transformation, be part of it.